Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee out here having my coffee this morning, and thought I'd take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about that power outage that we had here just recently, and sort of the local response to it, which wasn't very good actually. And me being the constant observer that I am, observing what's going on around me, and sort of the interaction of people. There was just a ton of negative comments on social media locally here because of that hour-and-a-half power outage. I don't want to say people were losing their minds, but it was pretty darn close. There was all kinds of complaining and ranting and raving. And one thing that I want to mention, a lot of it had to do with how the power comes into our area. We have a couple different alternate ways that the power comes into our area without getting into the weeds too much on it. But they've been working on that for a year or two to get the bugs worked out of that. There's like a computer control system with software in it that if there's a disruption from the one transmission source, it's supposed to seamlessly flow over to the other transmission source. Well, that didn't happen. And I thought that maybe right away when just the way the power flickered, it like flickered and then went off, it was off and flickered a little bit and then it went off. And then that's when I did my drive around, kind of instituted my protocols that I said in that other video. But I thought maybe that had something to do with it. And I just read this morning that yes, that there was problems with that system again. And people were just ranting about that on social media here locally, just craziness. And I'm thinking to myself, an hour-and-a-half power outage and people are just going nuts over this, or pretty close to going nuts over it, complaining and ranting and raving. Now, when I did my drive around, when I was going through my protocol, when the power goes out, this was within probably a half an hour of this taking place, I already seen crews locally going around and checking stuff. So the response time of our crews locally here was, I'd say, 30 minutes. Where are you going to get a 30-minute response time for a power outage out here? I thought that was pretty darn good. But, you still had the people ranting about it. And I'm going to tell you a little story here. This was years ago. An old person I knew that was on oxygen. And they were out of power for 4 days. 4 days, didn't have no electricity. And they were on oxygen, and they were going out to their car and they were charging their portable oxygen machine in their vehicle for a little bit and then going back in the house so they could basically have enough oxygen to remain conscious. And when we found out about it, we went over there right away with the generator to charge everything up. And while we were over there maybe 5-6 hours. Well, then the power came back on. This old person never complained once about that situation. Here, they were running a life and death machine for them, and the power went out, but they found a way around it, and they just took it in stride. People nowadays don't do that, and it's getting worse. And the people that were complaining a lot about that particular situation that I seen on social media, because I knew that there was going to be some kind of complaining about that, especially because of the timing of it all. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's right when people are all starting to come home from work and whatever. And I figured that there was going to be something like that. But people just need to harden up a little bit. I mean, come on, the power was out for an hour and a half. I mean, go outside, take a walk. It wasn't anything that I considered that big a deal. For me, it was a good test, because I test my generator a couple times a year, and, I usually test it in the fall. Well, it's late summer here, so it was sort of already in the ballpark, so it was just a good test for me. I took that little bump in the road and turned it into an opportunity to do something that benefited myself, but that's not how people are nowadays. And there's another thing that I noticed. Most of the people that were complaining about that didn't have local names. They were people that I've never even heard of before. There were people that have moved in here in the last few years since the pandemic, because there's been a mass migration of people since that pandemic out to the country and small towns. And the small town life and the country life is a life of self-sufficiency and resiliency. You know, we try to take care of ourselves out here. And I don't know if I ever mentioned this before. You know, one particular years ago, when we were up at a cabin that we rented every year, became friends with the people that ran that cabin way up in the west end of the Upper Peninsula. There was a windstorm that blew in, and seeing the old guy down there, he's pulling the boats up off the dock. And when I mean pulling boats up off the dock, they had round logs that they had laid up, and they were pulling the 14-foot boats up out of the lake, and walked down and say, "Hey, what's going on?" Pulling everything out. And he says, "Yeah, there's a windstorm coming across Keweenaw Bay, and it's going to hit here in an hour or two, and we're going to pull the boats up out of the water." I said, "I'll help you out, you know." So we started pulling boats up out of the water. We took the anchors, and we were anchoring them in, make sure everything was good. We no more than had that done. That wind swept across the lake and hit the other side where we were at there, and boy, that wind just roared. And we were standing there. Of course, we were probably 100 yards from the cabin where we were at the lakeshore there, and behind it was literally hundreds of acres of woods, and we just heard tree after tree after tree falling in that. And sure enough, power went out, and went back up to the cabin. The old guy, he got in his pickup truck, drove around, went over to his pole barn, you know, checked some stuff out, came back out. He says, "I'm going to go up to the substation, and I'm going to check out what's going on, see if it's a transmission line coming in here, or if it's, you know, something that's just local for our area here." And that's what started me on checking out and knowing how the power and stuff comes in my area, was this particular instance. So me and the other guys that I was with, we hopped in the truck. We went with this old guy out probably 2.5 miles to where the substation was for the local area. Guy walks right into the substation, starts checking stuff out, and he says, "Nope." He says, "It's the transmission line coming in here." He says, "We're just going to have to wait this one out. There's nothing that's tripped here in the in any of the boxes or whatever the heck that they call them." And I thought to myself, what a set of cojones does this old guy have up here to walk right into a substation and know what's going on and what to flick and turn and whatever. And it's that culture. It's that culture of self-sufficiency that's born and raised in, you know, the country, more or less. And getting back a little bit to the self-sufficient, self-reliant culture of the country and small towns and stuff. It goes back to when I was hunting up in the Upper Peninsula again, and picked a lot of stuff up from the guys up there. And I was hunting with this particular guy, lifelong Youper, born and raised in the Upper Peninsula. And I asked him flat out, "What do you think about, you know, people moving up here from the city, from the Lower Peninsula, whatever?" Because, you know, it's a huge, like, retirement spot. Old people, they're going to, you know, old rich people from the city think they're going to retire. They go up to the Upper Peninsula to experience, you know, nature, and then they get that first 2.5 feet of snow that blows in off Lake Superior, and they don't think it's quite so nice anymore, and then they snowbird back and forth, or end up selling the place and coming back down here or whatever. But I asked him, I said, "What do you think about all the people coming up here?" And he said, "You know, we don't mind people moving up here, and we don't mind, we get along with the people coming up here," but he said, "It's the people that move into an area that want to change the culture of the area." And I thought that was a pretty sophisticated answer, you know, under the circumstances. He said, "We don't mind people moving up here that want to experience the culture and be part of the culture." But he said, most of the people that move into these areas, they want to change it back to what it was in the city. And he said, that doesn't work. That's like putting a square peg in a round hole. And I'm starting to see that more and more, even where we're at here. You know, we're not that far from, you know, the cities here, but I'm noticing that more and more people are moving in, changing the culture, don't want to have that resilient, self-sufficient attitude, take things in stride. I mean, I remember one power outage. Power went out in the afternoon out in the country. I was probably 14 years old, and said something to Mom, said, "Hey, the power went out." Mom didn't even know that the power went out. She goes, "Well, you know, fill the dish pans up, and if the power don't come back on by tomorrow morning, we'll call over to the dairy farmer, and he can bring one of the generators over so we can fill our water tank back up." And that's actually what happened. Next morning, the power still wasn't on, like 10, 11 o'clock. Mom called over and said, hey, when you guys are done with your chores and milking, would you mind bringing the generator over for us? We can fill up the water tank. Yeah, no problem. They brought the generator over. We ran it, filled up the water tank. You know, everything was good. And power came back on later that evening. It was out maybe 24 hours. People can't live without their internet now for, you know, an hour and a half without complaining and ranting and raving. And it's an imperfect world, and people just need to learn that things aren't getting any better, and they need to have a little bit thicker skin with stuff. And it's just an observation that I had here just locally over this just really small little bump in the road. I mean, as far as things go, an hour and a half power outage in the middle of summer is nothing. I mean, you start getting power outages in the winter where it's below freezing, it goes on for hours and hours, people having, you know, pipes freeze and people starting getting cold in their houses and stuff. That's more of a problem. But I mean, in the middle of summer, that should have been just like, we'll go out, take a walk, and, you know, throw something on the grill or the fire pit or whatever, make something to eat, and enjoy the moment. But that's not how it is anymore. But anyway, just some observations that I wanted to mention here this morning, and give you guys something to think about as always. Anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys got a little information, a little entertainment out of my observations here on this video, and you guys have a good one.